behind here or whatever. So first of all, thanks everybody for coming. I hope this is our first and last virtual retreat because I'd rather be in person with all of you. So that is what it is. But we'll get some things done today. It'll be a little bit different, but it's okay. This will move forward. Can I have the next slide? So as you know, just for the big picture, we are part of a bigger network as we span the globe here, and us and Spark started at the same time. And these are all of the different caps that we have in our area of biofuels and bioproduct for USDA. Next slide. So as you know, everybody, we focus on Waiuli and guar, and there's our happy pictures of two of our, the two plants that we focus on. Next slide. And this is where we started. So we started with this picture that we made for the grant proposal, and we kind of broke it down into the different areas that were required for the proposal, but we've changed a bit since then. So we still have some feedstock development, but some of the other ones we've changed. And so I'll tell you a little bit more where we're at as opposed to where we were. So next slide. So now it's year 3, and today we've really kind of focused in on feedstock development that contains some of the sustainability parts for that. So a lot of people talk about that, like irrigation. Characterization of co-products is where we've landed in terms of the next steps. Lots of working on resins and things, so that's where we've landed, and not so much on actual production of fuels, because there's so much done in that area already. It's a little bit more of looking at the fuels, certainly putting them in our models and so forth so that we have the big picture. And then of course, system performance and sustainability. So there's quite a bit in that area, and they've made some of their own slides that I'll show you. And we've really started this last year moving forward with education, extension, and outreach, and a lot more well-planned activities, and then a lot of things, of course, have gone online. Next slide. So this is the team. Haven't been too many changes since we started in our group, but this is who we are. Next slide. So I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights on the different areas that we work in the new areas. So the feedstock development is one of our bigger areas. There are 11 key collaborators, lots of students, postdocs, and technical staff. These aren't all current. Some of these have graduated, but many people work in this particular area. And we've done things like biomass quantity and quality, high throughput phenotyping, agronomic production, irrigation, soil quality and health, and studies on flowering. And you'll hear from students on some of these areas today, but not all of them. Next slide. The characterization and co-products, like I said, that's what we've switched to, is a smaller group with 5 key collaborators and 40 students, postdocs, and technical staff, mostly focused on Waiuli resin, tissue, and bagasse characterization. There has been some work on guar nodules, and you'll hear a little bit about that today. The areas have been some characterization, some conversion review papers, biochemical analysis. A lot of the talks will focus on resin today, but there have been metabolites, chemical and microbial transformations as well. Next slide. System performance and sustainability. This team here has 7 key personnel with 17 students and postdocs. It's a collaboration across many of the different groups. It's probably the largest collaborative group that we have, since it's putting everything together. So there are many of, almost all of the universities and so forth are involved in this one. A lot of integrated models, some very key publications have come out with multiple authors out of this group. Farm level economics and integrated models as well, enterprise budgets, optimization and transportation, and social sustainability are the highlights of this particular area. Next slide. So this is the slide that they will show during their presentations that they made up so that you understand during their presentations what part of the sustainability team, where they fit in the sustainability modeling team. So if they're working on agriculture, transportation, conversion, impacts, economic feasibility, and social responsibility. So they'll show this slide to start their presentations. Next slide. In terms of extension and outreach, the two universities, I know Colorado State is also the land grant, but the two that have been the focus for this are New Mexico State and U of A, and Bridgestone has done some tours and things. Again, a lot of this has been on hold, but you'll hear from the different students and collaborators what they're doing, how things have worked, a lot of plans for outreach for growers, but we've focused more on some newsletters. 4-H virtual summer was interesting. Wouldn't say it was the favorite thing to do, but we did it, right? It worked out. And so obviously, you know, the kids that are interested are certainly going to participate. So we've moved into some FFA stuff, and the Project Puente is a little on hold. That's where we take in high school students and things for internships. We didn't do that this summer, so it's put off for a year. Next slide. Education, conveniently, we really plan to go virtual starting this year to extend our reach into more rural areas and other areas. It's been good. I mean, the graduate student teacher mentor teams in the different states have worked out well. They went virtual, and you'll hear from them. We have reached out to some Native American communities, and we're doing a lot of refining of lesson plans to really move virtual. And the timing couldn't be better for us to be moving virtual for this type of stuff. Next slide. So here's kind of the big picture slide of where we're at after 3 years. So we have 147 active participants. That's 25 key collaborators, 42 professional staff, 5 postdocs, 34 graduate students, 41 undergraduates, and 10 fellows. We've had 65 past participants. We've had some awards for presentations. I didn't put, this doesn't count awards that we give to ourselves, so that's why there's listed as 3 as opposed to quite a few more, so I didn't write down awards that we get for internal types of things. We've had 9 peer review publications. Again, some are a little slower just because of the data and data slowing down with COVID. 13 conference proceedings. 99 presentations. Again, I tried to eliminate internal SBAR presentations from that, so that's 99 presentations at external meetings from SBAR. We've had some herbicide registrations for Waiuli, 31 tabling events. 2 other things that have happened is this leads to more collaborations. So Bridgestone and NMSU have submitted a grant. And we did receive some additional funding from the Howery Foundation, which is a foundation that primarily works with Native American communities and the University of Arizona. And it's an endowment. And we received, I want to say 50 or 60K from them to do some more of our 4-H type activities. So that's a little boost to that particular area. Next slide. So here we are. This was last year. Like I said, I wish we were here this year doing the same sort of thing. And it's our group of, well, I don't think there's 147 there, but quite a few of the people when we gathered last year in Tucson. Next slide. So one thing that I just wanted to mention, especially in today's world, that some of the work we're trying to do in terms of diversity and inclusion, I thought, well, Amy asked me to do this, but it is a really good idea to think about diversity and inclusion. And one of the things I think that's been great for SBAR has been the team. The team itself is a pretty diverse team. We can always do better, but we've gotten along really well and have reached out to a lot of different types of people through our education, extension, and outreach activities. And within the team, it's very diverse, as you could have seen from the last picture. I just wanted to let you know that the All of the universities are doing quite a bit at the university, college, and department levels with a lot of VPs for diversity, inclusion, and equity. And we work with them. And the key personnel within our leadership team and other teams are quite active on our campuses, working on DEI types of activities. Lisa and I work with the kind of Institute for Environment. It's called Arizona Institute for Resilience, a new name, but we work within that group. Of course, Amy's very active at Colorado School of Mines. Jason's active in his department, and we've had people leading facilitations and being committee members of some racism research series at the U of A, and members of the NMSU Diversity Council. I'm also pleased to say that I wouldn't say came back, but finished my virtual ABET. So I'm an ABET commissioner. And as you may know, that's the accreditation body for engineering. And we just put in diversity and equity and inclusion language into the criterion for accreditation in many different places. It goes out for review for a year before it can be put in there, but we're also, what we passed is something that goes for the initial view is that we all introduce our students to do DEI, all engineering students across the world that are accredited. So we're moving forward. And I just wanted to let you know that all of us are working hard in this particular area in our quote day jobs. Next slide. So plans for the retreat. This is going to be a little bit shorter so we don't get Zoom overload. We're focusing on student presentations and industry updates, a lot of things from advisory board members to kind of, they're reaching out so we learn some things, and then the presentations are focused on the students. So I'm going to turn it over to Elise, who's going to give us a little bit of information about some logistics for this meeting.
All right, thanks, Kim. And thanks everybody for coming in today. I know this is kind of a strange process, the virtual platform, but we'll all muddle through together. I do want to just do a friendly reminder and touch on a few things logistically. We are recording the main session meetings. So just be aware of that. Monday, that's today and tomorrow, we'll be recording the sessions. You should be on mute if you're not speaking. And so just if you're not, then Cara will be muting people in the background. So that's to just eliminate the background noise and keep things kind of rolling forward. As far as the chat box is concerned, that is open to the public, and it will be very useful to you. If you're unfamiliar with how to access your chat, it does appear at the bottom of your screen, and then when you click it, you can type in a note to everyone at the bottom, and that will be your way of communicating with the group if you choose to do so. We will also be offering Zoom rooms, so if at any time during the sessions you would like to speak to somebody in particular during a meeting and you want to kind of step out of the main session for a moment, just send in through the chat box, just put a Zoom room request with the names of individuals that you'd like to go into a room, and we can set that up for you. The presenters, as we go through each of the sessions, will be facilitated by the leads of those sessions. So they will give you a 1-minute warning for those who are presenting, so that you know how much time you have left. Any questions that people have during presentations, please enter them through the chat box. We will be having Torin monitoring the chat box for questions, and he will be compiling questions and asking questions to individuals if there is time remaining after their presentation. And so the facilitators of the meeting or of the sessions will also allow for time at the end if there is any time remaining. We do have built-in breaks during the retreat. And so if you look at the agenda that was sent to you last Thursday, there are 2-hour breaks that are built in. We will leave the Zoom meeting open during that time. So that's certainly a time that you can communicate with individuals in the group. We can set up Zoom rooms during that time as well. You would just need to do a simple request through the chat box and we can put you into a Zoom room so that you can have a one-on-one conversation with anybody else during that time. So kind of keep that in mind. And then I also want to just do a friendly reminder to everybody that at the end of today, we will be hosting a happy hour, and Katie Brewer will be facilitating a beer tasting if you're interested in that. But there's also just an opportunity to socially engage with other people on the team. So with that, I believe that we're ready to roll on to Bridgestone's overview.
Yep. Thanks a lot, everybody. And we have 3 people helping to monitor things, as Torrin says, the question guy and Cara and Elise will be working in the background for things. And you can chat them privately too if you want to. So we'll give it over to Mark.
All right, I've unmuted, so I can speak now. So everybody can hear me okay?
Perfect.
All right, all right, very good, I'll continue. This is basically the presentation that I have here set up for us, and it's, again, very similar to what we have for the SBAR goals, since SBAR has really given us a lot of support. So the title is Building a Sustainable, Domestically Sourced Natural Rubber Economy with Waiuli. So next slide. I was basically asked to present, and so here's some of the highlights or the questions that were presented to me to address. And it's basically saying, you know, what's the context for Bridgestone? Why is Bridgestone interested in SBAR's work? And I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. But then what are the tangible outcomes for SBAR that will facilitate Bridgestone future progress? And there's 3 major areas that SBAR is addressing, and that's the agricultural methods and Waiuli varieties optimized for performance products, products recovered for high value applications, and conversion of residual biomass into biofuel with economic process. Here's a big question: has Bridgestone commercialization time frame for Waiuli rubber changed, or is the target still 2025? And our efforts toward commercialization are proceeding as the economics dictate, is the official answer. So some things, some major questions are still remaining on how to get to the economic solution for the process. So we don't have a firm commercialization date. It's still in that range, probably pushed out a little bit. Have SBAR research results thus far resulted in any shifts in Bridgestone commercialization plans? And I have to say that the SBAR research has actually helped in moving forward for commercialization, in particular for the understanding of resin, at least from my side, has been enhanced to help recognize the complexity of the resin and the potential value. So how is SBAR research setting the stage for future research and development that will promote Bridgestone goals? We'll talk about that as we move forward. And so basically, how about the next slide? So this is basically what the SBAR objectives are, and so they really feed into the Bridgestone objectives quite nicely. So I'm not the expert on the biomass side or the feedstock development, but we definitely have a lot of work going on within SBAR in conjunction with the Bridgestone people to do a lot of feedstock development work. I'm more tied into the characterization co-product side, And I highlighted in green there that some of the very significant things that are helpful to us is that we have been identifying value-added processes and products for Waiuli bagasse resin. So making value out of the bagasse resin are really critical to moving forward. And then there's been some analytical support for Waiuli and guar feedstock development activities, but in particular for Bridgestone, it's the Waiuli. And then evaluate potential for biofuel production from guar and Waiuli residues, and we're definitely continuing to investigate those things, and we appreciate SBAR's input into that. And so then another part of this project is definitely this sustainability, and we've got a whole system performance and sustainability group that's addressing those issues, and in particular the techno-economic analysis and the life cycle analysis is very important to us. So I won't read all the rest of that stuff, so we can just go on to the next slide. So this is kind of a slide that shows the overall inputs and outputs of the Bridgestone Waiuli process. And this in particular is showing what we're doing in the pilot stage. So we have a lot of work that's going on in the agricultural side, and our challenges is to maximize the rubber per acre at a minimum cost and minimum total biomass. Then we take all that biomass, we process it through our biorefinery, and our challenge there is to get maximum throughput at target quality and minimum capital investment. Then at the pilot stage, we really were looking at expecting to have just 3 products. Rubber, of course, is the primary product for Bridgestone's core business. Resin was expected to be a byproduct, and bagasse byproducts, which we were planning on putting into creating minimum value. But I think we can just shift into the next slide, and I'll address that issue. So when we initially started this project with Bridgestone, it was in 2010, and at that time, the price of natural rubber had really skyrocketed to $2.50 a pound. And so our project went forward, and we started all the work on doing a pilot plant and agricultural operations. And then we opened up our biorefinery in September of 2014. And at that time, the price of natural rubber had already dropped down to about 80 cents a pound. And currently we're probably around 50 cents a pound for natural rubber prices. So that really kind of ended up shifting our focus that rubber was not going to be the primary revenue driver moving forward in this process. So we really had to focus on some byproducts. So the next slide addresses that. So resin is going to be about the same volume of byproduct as rubber, but the way that it was initially visioned was that it might be something like an asphalt additive. However, that would only be the value of asphalt, which is in the 15 cent per pound range. So we started from that, and we realized that there's all these different components that are in the resin. And if we fractionate that resin material into all these different components, we can get some very significant value out of the resin product and really increase that value by a factor of 8 to almost 10. And that is really a major move forward for us to be able to do those things. So I'll just mention that SBAR is working on some things that'll be reported later on today, and that's the fractionation and taking off through distillation, taking off terpenes and sesquiterpenes. And it looks like we're getting some very good, successful work in that area, which is much appreciated. We found ways that we can fractionate also the Wyoulins and the Argentotans, and then instead of getting 15 cents a pound, we hope that we will get $1 a pound or more. And we've also seen that we can take out low molecular weight rubber that is taken away from the primary rubber product, but it ends up being a very significant amount of revenue in a low molecular weight rubber stage. It's actually worth more than it is in the regular standard natural rubber category type material. And then one last category of products is the triglycerides, and that has a generally low value material, but it's a significant amount of the resin component. So we still hope that we can make some value out of that. So basically we're taking a comparatively low value mixed stream of BPRC resin and dividing it into valuable streams. We have markets that exist for terpenes, triglycerides, and low molecular weight rubber, and areas that need to be developed are markets for sesquiterpenes, the Elamol and Desimol, and Wyoulins and Argentotans. So that's where we have our work really cut out for us. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of literature that's been out there that talks about Wyouli resin usage, and some of it's using the resin directly for wood treatment, for antithermitic activity. There's been some work in marine coatings. There's been some patents actually by Firestone about a sulfur modified resin and a jeffamine or amine modified resin. Again, I mentioned already, we've investigated the asphalt additive side from several different aspects, but that's a low cost area. There's also been some work on as the possibility of an insecticide or fungicide. And then there's also work on low molecular weight rubber side. So all these things are things that are out there in the literature, and those are areas where we're trying to get more products into those areas and develop the market for that. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest co-products that we have is bagasse, and this slide just shows that there's many different ways that you can apply the bagasse. You can burn it directly and use it to fuel a generation system to make electricity, or you can go through gasification and use that as a fuel. You can do pyrolysis to create some liquid fuels and mixed types of fuels. And then there's hydrolysis that can create different types of values going through sugars to other types of materials. So we've had some work going on in various areas there, and I'll point out that hydrolysis of bagasse is expected to yield about 20 to 24% ethanol. We've looked into the Lanzatech gasification area, and that's expected to yield greater than 30% ethanol, and also some excess heat that could be used to drive the process. So that's one of the areas where we're looking into. SBAR has looked into their hydrothermal liquefaction area and has had some limited success in that area. Another possibility is that we can use the bagasse directly as a particle board and maybe end up with a particle board that has insect resistance. So those are all areas that are being investigated. We're trying to move forward in those areas to create better value as a fuel. If we were to sell it without any upgrading, the bagasse is only valued at 3 to 5 cents a pound or so. But then if we can upgrade it in these other ways, like into ethanol, it can create quite a bit higher value, assuming that there is a market for ethanol moving forward. So that's one of the caveats. So next slide. So some of the research milestones that we've gone through here, we've done some work in conjunction with SBAR, and we've found new resin analysis methods. So one of the very significant things early on that we discovered that we have the low molecular weight rubber in the resin. Then we found out that we need to try and segregate that out, and that we find a value for that low molecular weight rubber. We've also been able to do some quantifications of valuable resin components and develop some new methods over at SBAR and at Bridgestone to analyze resin in the rubber and the resin components. So the other part is development of fractionation methods so that we can recover that low molecular weight material, and then segregate and recover terpenes, which have a significant value, and methods to recover argentotins so that we can recover a higher value there. And then we have some work going on and patents in the past that are about modifying the resin so that they can be more useful. Then tire rubber quality improvement and performance testing. We've actually done several tire trials, and we started out with a very low quality rubber that we were getting out of our process, and we found ways to improve that rubber quality so that we're getting we're up to a high performance natural rubber equivalent. And so we're meeting our goals there, and that part of the process is going very well. And we've really found the right design in our recovery process to take care of that rubber recovery side. So all that's moving forward, doing very well. Next slide. So this is just a little bit of a slide that just shows all the chemical structures, or some of the chemical structures, the major chemical structures that are in there. I think we've identified in some cases over 1,000 different compounds that are in there, but these are some of the major compounds. The terpenes are up in the top there, and then we have terpenoids that contain other things other than just hydrocarbons, and then there's sesquiterpenes, and then the Elamol, udesmol is in the center of that, and then wiolins are in the lower left-hand side, and argentotins of various types are on the lower right-hand side. So these are all the different types of products that we're finding in the resin. So next slide. And that's the end of this presentation. So I'm open to questions at this point.
Any quick questions for Mark? If not, you can always, of course, put it in the chat to him later or something as well. So that, if you want to do something, and that would be great.
There is a question in the chat now, and this is from Griselle. What is the market for LMW rubber?
So that's low molecular weight rubber. And there are a couple of companies that are already taking natural rubber and breaking it down to low molecular weight and using it as compounding additives in rubber compounds. So, and it can also go into adhesives. So there's a range of markets for the low molecular weight rubber.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?